All right, I think we're all set.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting of the Kalamazoo Lake Harbor Authority for a regular meeting Tuesday, July 21st, 2026 to order. Could we have a roll call?
Dick Waskin,
Here.
Holly Engel. Here. Sue Guevara. Jeff West.
Here.
And Chris Raphael.
Here.
Okay, well, we definitely have a quorum. First thing on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. One little correction there because I had this first typed out for June. If you look where it says motion to approve the June, it should be motion to approve the July 21st.
Make a motion to approve the June 16th, 2026 agenda.
Looks like it.
July, sorry.
Do we have a second?
I'll follow you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, agenda approved. Next up is approval of minutes of the May 5th, 2026 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Put in there approval of invoices. I did receive an invoice from Edgewater Resources, which I submitted to Ryan, which I believe this would be the proper way to do it. $950.32. Do we need to act on that at all, or just let everybody know that we did do that?
Yep. Okay. In this case, the city's paying it out of our funds and submitting for reimbursements. We're all set.
Great, great. Okay, then number 6 is public communications. Do we have any written communications, Ryan?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. We have anybody in the audience other than our guest speaker? Anybody on? Nobody online. Okay, so no public communication. So we'll just jump right into it. The new business of presentation by Christian Vetter, the draft of task 1. And after that, feedback from our members. So Christian, you're on.
Okay, so the phase 1 study is basically set up in 2 pieces and 2 different pieces. First one is the summary and the key findings from the stakeholder interviews and from reviewing all the documents I received. I think there was 8 or 10 of them. And this basically is a combination of that. The first page is a summary and gives an idea of how each of the communities here will be impacted. So page 1 is frankly the summary page, which you can always also have public facing if need to. Then we go a little bit more into detail, different types of sectors and how that would impact the local communities if dredging would stop. So, so we have recreation access, public use impacts. We got the economic and fiscal impacts. We have governance, coordination, planning impacts, also community and quality of life impacts, which is also, I think, a very important point. And then the final one, the final is then basically the impact finding summary tables, which are somewhat aligned with the general factors I mentioned before. So we have table 1 is the economy, table 2 is tourism, table 3 is quality of life, table 4 is jobs, table 5 is fiscal revenue, and table 6 are the property values and how they would be impacted. The tables also show which community will be impacted the most. And obviously, it's clear that the more exposure you have to the lake, to the waterfront, the higher the impact is going to be, negative impact, if dredging would stop. For example, if we look at the economy, Sagatuck is loss of harbor function reduces marine activity, charter operations, waterfront business revenue, and visitor spending. Douglas, that would be the weight per U access declines, reduced cross harbor visitation, impacts retail and recreation-based businesses in Douglas. The Sagatuck Township is indirect effects to reduce regional tourism and slower private investment. So you have a high impact, a moderate to high impact, and a moderate impact. But again, all three communities will be impacted in a specific way. Sagatuck, because it has the most exposure, will be facing the highest impacts if dredging would stop. Then the next section, I took a quick look at the second home markets in West Michigan. I think this is more to give a little background and understanding, especially if we're looking at property values. If dredging would stop, and you might lose waterfront access, you might lose waterfront view or water view, which is also impacts property value positively. So I basically did a quick look at Western Michigan and took a couple of other communities. So you have a comparison where the level of, for example, a second home occupation or second home percentage of the total residential units are in the area. And again, Sagatuck is Douglas and the township here. They are pretty much on top of the list. The estimated percentage of housing units that are seasonal and second homes is between 45 and 65%. But I heard this a couple of times during the stakeholder interviews, so that I wasn't surprised by that finding. Holland is a little bit low, it's quite a bit lower. It's only 10 to 18%, and it's of course higher once you get closer to the water. South Haven is a little bit in the same situation than the communities here. They have 40 to 55% share of second homes, seasonal homes. Muskegon is, I think it's growing. They're going that way. That's where a lot of development is going on currently around the lakes there. Right now it sits at 5 to 12%, depending, how close you are to the lake. So this is definitely something to keep in mind when it comes to property values. On the other hand, it's also a problem which was pointed out, which is obviously here that you have a lack of housing for labor force. Mm-hmm. Simply everybody who comes up here and wants to take part in the economy, filling a job, they need to find a place to stay. And this is kind of tough right now. Unfortunately, there's only limited space to expand or to develop new housing around here, and there's always the chance that the new housing is turned into short-term rentals, unless, of course, there are certain regulations put in place to find a balance. So this is also something to keep in mind. But in essence, if you look at the 45 to 65% of second homes, so if the value decreases, it's becoming less attractive to buy property here. It's lower return on investment, and I think this will put quite a bit of dent in the housing market and the property values here if dredging would stop. This third part is actually a little preliminary approach from my side. You guys worked on vision statement. I kind of picked this up and edit my own version to it. This is just a preliminary version. This is something you guys can fill out or change for, however you see this. This is going to fit best because you live here. Maybe I missed some nuances that are important for the statements. The next part of that is sort of recommendations for a vision. So what would be the role of the harbor authority? So four strategic roles are navigation, public safety, that you can take on, that you can stand for, that you can, coordinate, maybe implement, in cooperation with the three communities, because that's one of the core points. You are basically connecting point for those three communities in terms of the waterfront, the lake usage, and everything that's related to that, boating, harbors, and even the tourism restaurant stops. So that you would be basically the focal point for all three communities. Also some environmental stewardship. Keep an eye on reduce sedimentation, improve water quality, and support habitat restoration. It's also an asset if you have a nice clean environment with lots of different birds and other species. It makes it more attractive, even if you can take your paddle boat into one of those areas and do some bird watching. Just to give you an example. Then again, economic vitality. Protect the tourism economy, which is roughly about 200 million plus a year. So that's quite a bit of money that is generated here. Partly because, or mainly because of the waterfront boating, of the area of water views. So that's what makes the economy tick here. And if you look around, you can see that there's nothing much else here. No other larger economic sector is present here. So it's kind of on one hand you have an asset that you can build upon. On the other hand, there's you standing on one leg. And so it's even more important to protect that and make sure that it's stable. And that could be, another role for our authority. And then we have regional coordination. It's not only between the three communities, but also reaching out to the counties and also to the state, especially when it comes to funding opportunities. Also for maintaining the lakefront, but also for the activities, the harbor authorities do. Long range planning, just support that. See what needs to be done, what should be done, what kind of goals, a set of goals do you want to achieve, or what do you want to maintain over the next 10, 15 years? How important is that? What kind of sector are you looking at? There's tourism, you have boating, you have the harbor, you have the dredging, everything. Where do you see yourselves, or where do you see the lake and the three communities in 10 years? Sort of set up a set of goals or a path that you can follow and then slowly implement over time to make sure that you achieve those goals. You can always create a couple of key measurement points where you can see, okay, I wanted to make sure that the cost of dredging is not going out of hand. See, it's like if you have a 5% increase, over a year or whatever that might be, just make sure that it doesn't go out of hand, and see where you maybe are able to maybe find another operator or provider of that service. Keep trying to keep your goals in check and see if you have those, if you achieve those goals. Of course, there's that goes into sediment management strategies and intergovernmental agreements, talking about the county state, for example. And then I finally added a 10-year suggested roadmap for developing the role. So there are a couple of key points. Formalize governments and authority, adopt the mission, the vision, strategic role, update, agreements, clarify responsibilities, establish an advisory committee. That also can be done by volunteers, but that people with certain knowledge, specialists who know about dredging, maybe somebody who's a local tourism development expert. So those kind of people, they should maybe come in every quarter. You have a meeting with them. You talk about what's needed. Are there any changes in the specific sectors? Is there new dredging technology available, or things like that, for example. Build a core operational capacity. So this is a little bit going beyond what it is now. So we're talking now maybe turning this into a nonprofit organization, for example. So basically turn it into something semi-private, which kind of, on one hand, it's important to have a clear public-based public accountability of things you do. On the other hand, it helps you a little bit when you, for example, put an RFP out. So if you are a public entity, you have to go through certain steps in order to do that. And that's a process. If you're a private entity, semi-private entity, it's a little bit easier to do that. So you don't necessarily have to follow each of those steps compared to the city of Sargentine, for example. But again, that's the legal. Basically, what you would change your legal status and your taxing status and everything like that.
Do you find or have you seen other, bodies like this one that have done that it's more advantageous to become a nonprofit, that they might have more private donation for the tax write-off?
Yeah, this is the goal. But the goal of that is basically that on one hand, you become more reliant on donations and fundraising and grants and this kind of stuff. So you have to put effort in it to get financing. On the other hand, you don't rely on taxpayers' money.
Does that impede if we were to apply for like a state of Michigan grant or fisheries grant or any of those grants? Do they look at it differently if we are a nonprofit versus a current board authority like we are right now acting as a tri-community?
I would have to look into the legal forms, but usually I think nonprofits should be able to apply for those grants.
Okay, just so that we're not delaying that. If that's something we want to do as a board, we can side table this conversation. But I would just think about that. Like we might get more donations in nonprofit because they can write off that as a 503c. But if we can't get the grants from the state, if we're going to long-term do something, we might want to look at the weighing of that. But if we can do both, it's not a bad idea.
I think it's a good question, Holly, because depending on all grants in some way are different. So they specify like who's eligible to apply.
But could the city qualify and donate it? Or I guess that's something we can look at. I just don't want to make sure that we're like stepping in our own feet.
Yeah, I would be very careful about jumping right to a non-for-profit status. Like I almost think that you could. So, we could stay the status that we are, or I know that when we were on we had the little recycling committee going on. Like we also looked at like, what is the process of becoming like an authority that could levy taxes on our own? So that's also another option that gives this body more authority and then the ability to raise your own funds. So that's also an option other than staying as like an intergovernmental committee.
Okay.
Would it be similar to the like Friends of the Blue Star Trail, that type of?
Friends of the Blue Star is like a non-for-profit. And I think that's a lot of work. They put a lot of effort into fundraising. And then, Ryan knows they depend on us for the execution of all the projects. And they're very involved, but they're still highly dependent on municipal staff.
But they get a lot of state grants. That's pretty much what's funding most of that, right?
The municipalities get all the grants.
Okay.
And then what they do is they're able to kind of kickstart things. So they, with their donations, they're able to kickstart engineering work that's necessary to apply for these bigger grants. And then the municipalities will go for the grants. And then we secure the lion's share of the funding to implement the projects.
That makes sense. And you're overseeing it because it's your zone or your area.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
your house and home.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the downsides, as you mentioned, is if you're a nonprofit, you lack the authority to implement or that's out of the
Okay.
picture.
And not to like to this point, beat the point to death, but I mean that my understanding, one of the reasons why the Harbor Authority originally was started was because there were some laws that were sunsetting at the state that allowed this type of authority to be formed that had legal mechanisms to establish funding streams through establishing TIF districts or doing special assessments for the the harbor, and so those tools right now are still in the toolbox. I don't know that any of those laws, I don't know if they're still in place or not, to where if you were to shift directions, if we'd be able to go back to that. So if they're not in place, then certainly. So definitely a key consideration.
Yeah, I think this is a serious, would be a serious change for us and something that would down the road we could consider. But I have a feeling that at this point in time, we probably need
Say to the next
to
1 to
proceed
3
with the
years.
direction you feel we should go in at this point in time without changing the whole
Yeah.
environment of what we're doing.
Maybe there's an opportunity to, become sort of a governmental agency, like you said, with you can levy taxes. It's quite easy to apply for state grants or for federal grants if they're still available. On the other hand, maybe there's an option that gives you sort of a nonprofit arm, so to say, that works in tandem with you, and that basically comes covering fundraising, public outreach. I mean, it's a possibility that maybe the tourism bureau can help to start these things up. Because I think there's quite a bit of potential if you make it clear that, for those $500,000 or $1 million homes around here, if the owners know once the dredging stop, they lose 25, 30, 40% of the value of the home.
Mhm.
Simple as that. So they have an interest in that. So that might, help a little bit with fundraising and donations and things like that. So basically and that's something, further down the road. First of all, you got to establish yourself. You gotta see where the funding is coming from. You gotta make sure that everybody, all of the 3 communities are on board and backing this, and establish where your authority lies.
Right.
And
That's a good point.
what you're gonna do with that.
Yeah. Can I just ask you another question? You had the tourism economy down as 200 million annually. How did you come up with that
That's
number?
my question.
Well, this is basically based on sales tax, number of visitors spending per day, per night, length of stay.
I know, but how did you find that? How did you get I know you can get the beds from the CVB, but that doesn't give you short-term rentals or anything like that.
No, sure. So you basically go in and do a search on your own on Google or Airbnb.
Mhm.
So it's because those are usually not listed in any kind of public documents, like a tourism statewide tourism study and things like that. So you really have to do the digging yourself and find it.
Part of the reason I'm asking that is because usually, not usually, but sometimes when you do this, you can take a dollar brought in by tourism and then expand it how many dollars this become as it goes out to the.
This would be actually then phase 2. What I would do is I would exactly take those dollar amounts and put them into an economic impact model. So the impact model basically tells you the direct effect, the indirect effect, and the reduced effect of $1 that's spent here that goes through the local economy in terms of what tax revenue generated, the number of jobs supported, income generated. So this, again, this is part would be phase two if you agree on that, that won't continue. So then you get the actual dollar amounts.
Mhm. You could probably do some homework on that too. Like for us, if all three boats ran a normal season, $1,000 a pop on average, 3,000 a day they're bringing in. That's $1,050,000 per year. Plus, there are people who are coming to have lunch or dinner or stays. So that's kind of compounds. You think about the Star of Saugatuck, you think about all around ship and shore, the barge,
Mhm.
beachway, the dune rides, you know, all that stuff. It's
What I could do is I could, I'm
Is
finishing
it a good
up
question?
an impact study for the Academy County conservation.
Mhm.
And part of that is visitor impact. And I can give them a call tomorrow and ask them if they're willing to share this part of the study.
Be kind of neat to see.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, if somebody's invented the groundwork and we just kind of follow that path. Do other communities on the lake like us do dredging? Is there any other dredging that goes on to maintain the recreational harbor or?
I'm not aware. I would assume that to a certain extent, I think Holland is doing it. I think Muskegon is probably doing to a certain extent. It really depends on, you know, where the water comes from. And most likely, if it comes from you know central Michigan, with all the agriculture there, they're probably going to have to do it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Are you aware of any grants then that have been available for something like that? No.
They had Daniel and I were on this. It was the coastal hazard study back in 2022. Remember that course we went through? There was like 4 of us from this board.
Was it, what do they call it? The coastal, it was like something like Coastal Management Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can share their contact, but they had like South Haven was actually our closest, and there was people from Coloma, New Buffalo. Like they had probably 10 ports throughout the whole lake, and it was amazing the data that they were able to share and watching the NOAA points and how, you know, things are set to kind of prevent things. But to his point, it just depends on, is it in Kalamazoo Lake or is it in the harbor? Like, is it in coastal waters, like in the pier heads where we had the grant a couple of years ago where they dredged. So it just depends on what's causing it and where, what grants are available that you could apply for.
And if I could right now just intervene for a second. I think one of the purposes of our meeting tonight is to review the draft, to make comments and suggestions on what we think would be added to it, because eventually what's going to happen is this phase one is going to have to go to each one of the municipalities. And then they have to approve if we go forward.
Exactly.
So I would like to kind of maybe give Christian the opportunity to finish his presentation, and then for us then to give feedback on where we think this should go, what should be improved, what we need to have in here. And because if we don't get phase one approved to go to phase two, we're done. So anyways, so Christian, if you could please finish your presentation, appreciate it.
Downer you.
No, I just want to be realistic. Right.
Not necessarily directly connected to this one, because I'm going to go and take some of the inputs I've already generated, but we will refine those and get, you know, be more detailed in, for example, as we said, the visitor study. How much do they spend for per day? How much of that is for food? How much of that is for retail? How much of that is for hotels and accommodations? You know, how long are they going to stay? What was the party company? Is it a family? Is it a couple? You know, this all has important implications for the actual impact study. If you look at dollar amounts, so the second phase is actually dollar amounts. Simple as that.
So help me then with phase two. Is that what we contracted with you for, just, or phase one,
No,
not phase two?
one, that's done. It's done, and it's up to you guys if and when you want to move to phase two.
The phase two is where the dollar amounts come in.
Yeah. This is actually, phase two is an impact, economic and fiscal impact model that I will set up, explain, run, and then show you the dollar amounts, which are results. So continuing phase two. So basically, phase two, years 4 to 7. So this is after the first phase. When you establish yourself, you have set up, the foundation of the harbor authority. You know where your goals and core strategies and core responsibilities are, and where your authorities, what you can enforce, what you can implement, and these kind of things. So that's phase one, setting everything up. Also deciding about what kind of legal structure it's going. Phase two then is basically using the foundation, using your authority to implement certain procedures, regulations, and start regional partnerships, basically. So like, okay, let's talk to your neighbor, for example, and say, like, hey, what can we share? Is there something, we both can contract and then get a better deal because you do the same thing that we do.
Mhm.
So instead of competing for one operator, basically saying giving the operator or the contractor, a larger project, we want to get a better deal. So things like that. So coordinate with other regional communities, but also with other economic development authorities and tourism bureaus and boating associations and other unions and others, so that you basically set up a whole network of communication, cooperation to really maximize the results that you have. It's always when it comes to that, especially when you spend money, it's always better to it's the purchase power, basically. Why things are cheap at Walmart or at Aldi, because they buy a lot of stuff, so they can go to the producer and say, like, hey, we take a huge amount of your product, but we want to have a cheap price. So it's purchasing power and economy of scale, basically. So that's a little bit of thought behind that. And then finally, if we look at phase three, this is when you're established, you have your strategies, your goals, your results all already in place, and then you can go out and basically not only to other harbor towns in Michigan, but maybe all across the U.S. and say, like, here, look at our model. This worked out well for us. We achieved our goals. We are in control of how our lake is developing. We are in control of our local tourism economy that's based on the lake, and that could be a model for other communities. So we can go to conventions, for example, and it's also a marketing tool for the communities here to bring in more visitors if we want that. Given parking situation. You might not, but anyways. But yeah, this is when you really establish when all the kinks are worked out, which will come in. Of course, they would understand. And you have a concept and solid implementation of your responsibilities, cores, wants, needs, and how you best proceed with this. So this would be the phase three. So years 8 to 10. Again, it's a little bit generic, but again, we're at the starting point. So you have the background knowledge, so it's easier for you to fill at these points. This is basically what I heard from the stakeholder interviews, what I read in the studies, and also from a couple of previous projects we did, where we made some suggestion of to organize some community organizations or authorities. Mostly, most of that comes a little bit from comprehensive plans and so it's a little bit adjusted to your situation, but it's still somewhat something you can relate to in terms of proceedings for the next 10 years.
Christian, is in regard to phase one, and I really want to focus on that because this is what's going to go back to the councils. What kind of feedback do you want from us as you polish this up to be ready to be presented to the municipalities?
Yeah, but basically is first of all, just email me your questions and comments of that. If I missed out on something, I overlooked or something like that, let me know. Read through it, if there are any edits you would like me to do in the document, and take a moment and think about how you could fill out phase one of the authority. How to build up where the foundations are, because this is also something that you want to be able to talk to each of the communities. Basically, to make a statement, this is our role, this is what we're going to do, this is our core responsibility, and this is what we want to achieve. Mm-hmm. And I can, with that input, I can basically refine phase one, and then say, this is a refined phase one, a little bit more detailed, and then phase two and three will follow, based on the outcome of phase one, because this phase two is 4 years out. A lot can happen before. It also depends on how you organize yourself. What kind of authorities you have. Where your funding is coming from, what amount of funding you have available. It's going to be a year. Every year is going to be a chase for grants, funding, and everything like that. So that's going to be the grind of it. So in order to stay as independent as possible from taxpayer dollars, which is always important to mention that, but it's sometimes going to be difficult. So it's going to take a lot of work. That also then begs the question: well, are you going to have hire full-time staff, or are you going to hire part-time staff? How many people is there going to be initially? Is there maybe a chance that some of the communities like cities maybe can take some of that? Because I'm pretty sure they have a couple of experts that are doing a lot of applications for funding and grant funding and that kind of stuff. Maybe they can give you 2 or 3 hours of their time in order to do that. So that saves you some money up front. And once you establish your core responsibilities broaden a little bit and get bigger, the funding gets bigger, and then donations are coming in because we see that's what you do is important and creates value for them. Then we might be able to hire full-time staff or at least part-time in order to make this happen. We can set up a business plan if we want that too. So that's definitely not a possibility.
So do any members right now have any feedback they'd like to give to Christian for things he can add to this to beef it up maybe a little bit?
I, for one, agree a lot on what you just said about staff, maybe like a business model. I feel like right now, and I'm new in part of the committee, I don't even know what the genesis of this authority was, but I get the sense that all we are is ears to take back to our councils, and that's a little ineffective in my viewpoint. I feel like there needs to be a mission statement, a business model, even if it's not a technical, technically a business. So there's some power to lay out plans and make, at least future plans, I guess is the right word for, for the direction of the way things are going. Because if all we have to do is keep going back to the council every single time, it's just, the process is, interminable. And it also, it's hard, like right now for like tonight, we're going to be depending on me to go back to my council and say what happened today. If I didn't take good notes or I didn't understand what was going on, how effective would I be? I'm going to be very effective, but I'm just, it's dependent. And it shouldn't be that haphazard, I don't think. I think it should be with a lot more purpose. And so, because I do believe that the body of the authority should have a little more power of governance to be able to at least lay out a direction and not have to go back and vote, my council vote on it, because the rest of the people in council, I love them all dearly. They haven't heard all the, all this that we've heard tonight or in other meetings, and they're not going to be on board. Some of them, I can already tell you which ones would not be on board.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go, if you go to your council and you take this report, basically part one shows what will happen if you stop dredging.
Right.
And part two,
That's
which
right.
is the harbor authority is an option, an opportunity in order to mitigate part one.
Right.
So that's basically it, and that's what the authority is going to be. It's going to make sure that part one doesn't happen.
Gotcha.
And basically, what we're trying to set up is sort of an independent, or as much of an independent authority as possible from the 3 communities. I mean, the authority should be still backed by the communities, all 3 of them, the work that the authority does. But up to a certain point, the authority should be independent and just focus on making sure that everything around the harbor, that this works out, that it's dredging is taken care of, that it's reasonably priced, that it's effective, and adding to these goals, because we all know that goes away. You will have no parking problems.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have any argument. Everyone, I believe, in all 3 communities, that's the one thing everybody can agree on. It's, the water and Saugatuck, Douglas, Saugatuck Township, it's synonymous. It's a symbiosis of everything. It's like we're all here because of the water, pretty much. I mean, we'd be a wholly different place altogether without the water.
Now, I might just throw it out there. Maybe the 3 communities should also stick their heads together and think about what would be a second leg our economy against that. I mean, not right now, but just throwing it out there.
If fuel prices keep up, I mean, yeah, you might have to pay.
Maybe just
Parking.
Food for thought.
We're working on it.
We can generate funds just for parking.
Holly, do you have any suggestions you want to give?
I think it's pretty clear cut. I appreciate your time and effort that you put into it. I think we as a body have a lot of independent work we can do together to kind of, give you the feedback individually, like you said, so that you can take that and kind of compile it, so we're not, spinning wheels here. I really like the idea of, where are we going? What does that look like? I'm not saying we need to go nonprofit, but I do like the idea of buy-in from the communities and from independent individuals, especially with their bases being jeopardized. If we lost the waterway, maybe we set up some way. And again, I don't know what this looks like, whether it's nonprofit, or as we are, we have somehow we can plan that separately, that we get community buy-in, because I think that's the biggest thing. I've lived here almost 14 years and I've been on this board probably 6 or so, and nobody really knows, what do you guys do? Who are you? The community is, and I'm very prevalent. I think we all are very prevalent in the community. Nobody knows what this body does and what we are. And so maybe part of phase 1, 2 in our 1 to 3 years is developing like a community awareness plan of who are we, what's our mission, what's our statement, what are our goals, and how can we also, if we're not raising TIFs, but maybe raise money for future fundings, because in 5 years from now, if we even raised, let's just say 100,000 every year, 5 years is 500,000. I mean, just kind of putting that long-term goal out there. Where do we want to go? What does funding look like, and how do we raise it? It's not going to happen overnight, but if we don't start anytime, if we started 6 years ago when I started on the board, we'd have a good TIF. We have nothing. And I think that would help alleviate some of the stress from the 3 councils and them going from their individual governing budgets to fund a community project. So I think, when we did the lights on the bridge, that was a big thing. Well, who's paying for this portion and this portion? And it's just, I think that would help alleviate some of your guys' stress, maybe, if we're not cutting into your budget too. I don't know what that looks like, but I think that's a good thing to think about.
Well, Dick and I were there when this all started, and pretty much the kind of agreement was you wouldn't have power. You weren't going to do anything unless your council or your township board gave it to you. In fact, the first time I think somebody tried to have a little power was when they lined the boats up and they wanted to go out, like 4 boats out, and that got slapped down and said, as a council member said, "You're not telling me what we're putting in our water." So that is always in my mind be an issue, especially as a council member having an authority that is independent on its own, but doesn't have money that's going to get the money from us. That's just going to be an issue. Authority, if it's the authority has their own ability, which pretty much we might have our own ability to do a millage, do bonds, do whatever. That's one thing. I don't see at this point the councils have agreed to any of that. I mean, that to me, the secure funding, that's huge. That's going to be for us a lot of the I don't know, angst that you're going to have. Just by going from past experience, we don't have a lot of authority. Well, we don't. We just don't.
Even though it's called authority.
It's authority, but we don't have it.
Well,
It's in the name.
first of all, and I'm pretty sure that the are aware of the issues, economic issues that will come up if the dredging stops.
I don't think they do. I'm just gonna throw that. I don't think they do. I don't think it's not that they don't think about it. We talk about it, but we don't think it'll ever happen. The lake goes up, the lake goes down. The lake goes up. I mean, that's what you're running smack into, in my opinion. And it could be different, and then also I think that how it impacts our different groups, we get more of the value because we have this here. So maybe we should be the ones that set up the authority and do this, or the Douglas has the marinas, so maybe they should be doing it. And you have the upstream flow. Mm-hmm. So those are 3 huge differences that I think they're going to have to be in-depth talks with our councils about where do you even see the authority going, or do you see an authority?
What kind of authority do the councils think the harbor authority should have?
Yes.
What kind of authority are you willing to give up to the harbor authority?
Yes.
And given the of course, given the notion that each of the communities are represented in the harbor authority. Mm-hmm. So they know what's going on, they know what's been done. So it's not, a secret, gathering every other month, doing whatever they do without, having a clear agenda that is known to everybody.
I know I'm talking too much, but for me, the next step is the dollar amounts on phase 2. Because if we go back to the councils, the first question is, how are you going to fund this? I mean, that's just, to me, the dollar amounts are going to move this thing forward. Mm-hmm. So for me, phase 2 is huge.
Again, what you see, if you see phase 2, it's basically a dollar amount. What a dollar generates basically within the account. So a visitor comes here or a voter comes here and he spends $1 here, then it goes through the economy, and then you get the impacts of that. So, and we basically can say clearly, okay, you know, if you stop dredging, then that's, you know, for the voters, maybe 50 or 60% of that spending is gone. It doesn't have any impact. It's gone. It goes somewhere else where they can do their thing. And again, it's an issue. Again, going back to the stakeholder interviews, and they said some people say, "Well, I got stuck with my one. If there's no dredging, or if just do one half, I'm kind of scared to take my boat out because I get stuck in the ground." And then you have to get it out of there, and there might be some damage and so on. So it's an issue, and it's at least in that community, it's very well known. And I don't know how much the voting community is represented in the councils, but and then simply, you know, just have to talk to the business owners around here, the marinas, the supply stores, the repair shops, the storage facilities for boats, for example, restaurants. You know, everybody's kind of affected. So then the question is, again, if that has to be crystal clear to the councils, and then you can go through the process and say, like I said before, what kind of authority are you willing to give up, given the fact that you are represented within the harbor authority? So nothing, what happens there passes by, you know, all of the council members and all of the communities. So it's just it also gives one less thing for the communities to worry about, to have to take care of, because we established that harbor authority that takes care of A, B, and C, so we don't have to worry about it.
Haven't there been economic studies done in the last couple of years, like for the planning, the master plan in Saugatuck that's going on right now, where they've referred to some of the value of tourism? Don't we have some of that data already?
Boy, that's a really good question. I haven't seen it.
And we have two managers here. They could answer the
Yeah.
question.
It was in our plan. It's the city's master plan.
Mhm.
I mean, that work is still ongoing. So, in fact, some Christians work.
We didn't do that work.
Approved task 2 will be an important piece of the overall economic picture.
That's what I was thinking. To get to that number, it should be fairly easy. The other thing, when I was running the Park Township Airport in the late 90s, we started a nonprofit as an adjunct because people wanted to donate money to keep the airport alive and equipment and things. And that worked out pretty well, but it wasn't us directly. It was someone friendly to the airport who started the thing up. It was very easy to run and, you know, just take donations, talk to people that wanted to support us. And it worked quite well as a,
We
could
do,
get money.
yeah, we do that through the Saugatuck Sport Fishing Association for the kids in the class. It's a nonprofit 503c. Like, so we do, to your point, people will donate to that because it's for a good cause. So even if it doesn't impact us directly, and that's something we don't entertain, if somebody sidestepped wanted to do it on behalf of maybe create their own little, hey, I want to step up and help the communities, but still making it go through the chain, if that makes sense. I think too, a budget would be nice. So I guess for me, because I'm a mathematical individual, it's like, you know, you talk numbers. It's like, okay, well, is dredging going to cost 500,000? Is it 750? I have no idea what dredging would even look like. So
Very good question.
before we,
4 million was the one that they threw out to us all the time.
but then
I
that,
say I think it's probably like 10, 12 million
but I
now.
have no idea.
Is that once a year or is that like once a decade?
No, I think it's like
As
once.
needed.
I think that would probably be like good. I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's like decades if we did the $12 million dredging
It's
project.
done whenever it's
I
needed.
think that would be very important to show as we're approaching council and approaching individuals, especially for either raising tail turfs and asking for nonprofit or donations or however we look at this, is to say, if you're asking me for a donation, what's the main cost point? How's it breaking down? And maybe in phase 2, we can say, well, statistically, you own 3% of the share, but you own 30%. So we need to target hey, let's start asking for these donations or grants. What is our goal? Because right now, I don't know what our goal is. Are we raising 4 million or 12 or, you know?
When you talk about dredging, doesn't the Corps of Engineers dredge from the channel to
They dredged to
Coral
Coral Gables. But
And then is it the village of Douglas that takes care of the rest? Or was that Raleigh Peterson?
well, it was RJ that did that. I mean, yeah,
So-
he did it on his own.
What number are we looking at? Are we looking at the whole thing? Or are we just looking at,
No,
From
because
Coral
the
Gables
feds would
to-
do from Coral Gables down because that's navigable U.S. coastal
Mhm.
waterways. So it's
Right.
Coral Gables up here, and that's the biggest
Okay.
concern is what happens at Kalamazoo Lake that will then flow downwards. I mean, yeah, you can choke out there, but then okay, you can get up to Coral Gables, that's fine and dandy, but what about the rest of this pond?
And these are questions I think Greg Wycamp was helping answer for us.
Yeah.
And I think can be a resource for you as well if you want to plug in some of the things from Greg, because he had compiled the things that had been done previously, studies have been done previously, talking about the numbers, talking about the Superfund site eventually getting here and federal tax dollars becoming available someday. Yeah. So I think that those, when you get to the specifics of that, that Greg can help, work with Christian on that to give them that. I think what Christian's trying to do here is give us
Yeah.
the structure we need to be able to, physically go forward to accomplish these goals. So, if I might as well take my turn. I got a lot in my head right now on this. When I first looked at your phase one, it scared the heck out of me because all of a sudden I said, that's a lot of work. That's beyond my skill set. That, I'm a volunteer. I care passionately about the harbor, our town. But I looked at this and in a 10-year plan, I'll be dead by the 10-year plan.
Like to make the 3.
Yeah. So that, it was very challenging. And then that made me feel, well, we need experts to come alongside of us because we're here representing our communities, but we're not really qualified in all the aspects we need to be qualified to get the grants, to put these things together. So, I would see possibly a director in our future, who could be that person, that go-to person, but requires somebody we have to hire and pay. So that's how I was looking at this, but I agree with the conversation we were having about our independence. I was on the DDA, the Douglas Downtown Development Authority, for many years. And we were responsible for forming a TIF.
Sorry.
And so that TIF all of a sudden gave us funding. And not to throw stones at Douglas, but the council was very reticent to give up control of that funding. And I kept saying, well, no, those are the tax dollars that we've raised. It should go into a separate pile, and that pile should be directed by the Downtown Development Authority. That didn't sit well with them, and so I think we need to convince, if we're going to have that independence, we need to say, okay, if we're going to go out there and get this funding and establish it, it's got to be its own little pile, that then we should be able to direct it. So that, to me, that really resonated. So I guess what I would like Christian to do is maybe take the feedback and urge everybody to give him more feedback so that when we're ready to either probably not the next council meeting, but the next one after that, maybe sometime August, September. And I think we have to go to those meetings, present our opinions and feelings and support behind this. Because I agree that I've sat in each different municipalities meetings talking about this, and I've watched the skepticism. They say, oh, we've tried this before, we've done this before, we've gotten nowhere. Look, you've been here, why should we spend any more money on you? And I think we have to prove that we can put it together formally almost as a business venture and make this viable. And if they turn us down, I guess I'm serious about what I said, then that pretty much is that, then if we're not going to be an authority, then we're not.
Also, find out that if you give an authority, then you also take a responsibility to, make sure that take care of your performance. So that this is not, we would just want the authority and that you still pay us. No, it's like, you give us an authority and then we also take on, revenue generation or funding and, that kind of stuff, so that they see that, we give the authority, but they don't, drain the community resources. They're taking care of their own funding, and we are still having implementation in the authority, so we know what's going on, we know where the funds are coming from. We see, that they have a nonprofit arm that takes care of donations and fundraising and things like that. So if you start with the fact that you're going to lose a lot of tax income, a lot of visitation, a lot of businesses if the dredging stops, and then say, but we can help prevent this and then streamline everything, make it more efficient, become I wouldn't say a one-stop shop, but for everybody involved, to make sure that everybody's represented, that we have some authority that we can use in order to achieve the goals that benefit our communities and the businesses in here. And I think then it will take some convincing. There's no doubt that's the way it is. But I think you can make a good case for it.
So if we went to our councils and said, what authority should the authority have? Which would be, what do you really see this authority doing? So some of the questions would be, should we have the ability to tax or have how do we go and ask them what we want to do?
That's taxing authority. That's I could be looked dicey.
But then
I would probably say we should have the authority to negotiate dredging, or that kind of services. You agree that we have the authority, the knowledge, and the background that we can do this. You don't have to worry about that, and that kind of stuff. Taxing that could get a little bit dicey because the community said, okay, wait a minute, what are you going to put a tax on?
Right.
So.
Oh yeah, same thing with taxes or donations or any of that. They're gonna want to know all those questions.
Yeah, a TIF could be a
A
possibility.
TIF could be a possibility. A bond could be a possibility.
Yeah, Christian, might be helpful, and I can't remember who did those that I sent you a lot of documents, but if I didn't send this, I'd send you our kind of the establishing document that established the Harbor Authority that kind of really lays out what powers they have. I mean, I think there's more powers that are established, but because of lack of funding, those powers can't really be exercised. Is really the issue at this point. But some of that might be a little bit insightful to maybe lay out in there and talk about, okay, well, should they be broadened, shifted, changed, evolved into something different, depending on, which direction everybody wants to see this go. And this is another thing that I can't help but think back, I wonder if similar conversations probably happened when, a water sewer authority is formed or a fire district is formed, right? As we're talking about the importance of the harbor on the area's economy, and obviously you're all wanting to, we know that, and he's showing the risk, at least, in writing, wants to put the numbers behind it to help tell that story. It's kind of an interesting fundamental question of, is this a big enough thing to where you need somebody a joint, authority to lead this and take this on and carry the ball on it, like we do with fire services and how important that is. And with, water sewer, and even water sewer, we're talking about taking an even bigger step, with that and going beyond just kind of joint service needs to running the entire system is a fundamental question that we're obviously wrestling with right now. So it's that type of a question. And to your point, Dick, like if there's not the support to do that, then why continue to have meetings if there's not the funding there? And then how are we going to tackle this issue then? If it's not
Right.
this format, then like I said, at some point it's going to need, I mean, it needs to be done when the water's low. We know that. We got real lucky this year, but it's going to happen. So, and it's going to have a real impact. So
Yeah.
what is our answer to that, in the future? So.
Yeah, what would be the alternative?
Yeah.
You want to tackle this?
I guarantee those same questions came up, when you're talking about fire districts in Cal Lake. It's those, what things are you okay with controlling and giving up control over power, or as Chris put it, and that's really what it is.
What I suggest I could do is just scan Michigan and maybe other communities that are similar to for example, and see if they have harbor authorities and what do they do? How are they set up? How are they financed? So basically, see if I can find 3 or 5 case studies.
The secret.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Unique situation we have here, though, is we have 3 communities with one body of water. And, trying to get everybody to agree. That's the reason I think this authority is important, because if nothing else, everybody comes together in one room.
Yeah, and the advantage of that is if you have to move fast and you can't make the decision, you don't have to go back and wait for the approval.
We got years.
3 different
Years we're talking.
It has been a year.
We'll all be gone by then.
He honed in on that.
Have a shelf life.
I think we did start because there was legislation that was going to end the money going out to marinas, and you had to be a public marina, and we didn't have a public marina. And so we kind of put it together so that money could go through the authority. And then, we just never had the money, and RJ saved us when he did the Coatan. Otherwise, we would have been here years ago.
I even know why there's a Douglas Harbor Authority, and I'm on both committees. And I don't know, not sure that I know why.
Something similar happened.
Don't get paid for that.
No, I didn't. One community gives money to fund the maintenance of their harbor. But yeah, I mean, independence authority, ultimately everything comes down to funding. That's why you have no authority.
We don't have any money.
You have no money. So
I like the idea of putting a number out there to say, okay, impact between all communities. Let's all come together. This is what our game plan is in the next 3 to 5 years. We need to get there because we have an issue. We're lucky this year. We've all said it. So what about, you know what I mean?
you might have to, I mean, the one thing that I would say, like, Christian, if we could get, so with the phase 1, because we're really in like point 1 of phase 1, like maybe there's more detail that could be fleshed out. Like maybe these studying case, looking at case studies of other communities and how they handle the maintenance of the harbor would be helpful. Maybe we take a step back and then take some baby steps. Mm-hmm. So in a way, there's a big accomplishment because all 3 communities gave money to fund this project. So that's a good step forward. But I do think that there's different ways to go about it. You could go the Friends of the Blue Star Trail route, which you generate a lot of public support, and you generate the initial funding to begin some of these planning projects, and you put sufficient pressure on the municipalities to support them and essentially get behind the project where there wasn't support before. Or you need to convince the municipalities directly that they need to be giving more and more funding for these projects. And I think probably the way to do that is the baby step and attempt to identify some of these smaller low-hanging fruit projects that will help build momentum and that we can get funding for. Maybe it's through the CVB, maybe it's through the Allegan County Community Foundation. That is going to require some funding from the municipalities. Really what you need is technical assistance. Like we don't have any staff. And without that, we can't move forward. Like this is not an easy topic to wrestle with. It's just not. It's really complicated. And without dedicated staff to assist with this, we're not really going to get far. So that's what I'm thinking, like, is it the baby step path? Are there grant programs that would fund technical assistance for harbor maintenance, harbor management? I don't know the answer to that. I looked up the coastal management program. They don't. They do support planning projects. So maybe it's maybe it's pulling apart 1 and 2 a little more, maybe a little more detail to some of these items so that we can at least know what we want to do, how much it's going to cost, what funding mechanisms are out there. Some of this stuff is going to be not as expensive out of the gate, but then building momentum that way. And I do think a pivot, like a really critical point, is involving the councils and the board, because I would say that they don't really understand what's going on here, and they don't understand the urgency, and they don't understand the amount of time it's going to take to reach the point where we have the plans to do the dredging and we have identified a source of funding for that project. Like, we're just so far from there. So consistently engaging the councils and the board on what's happening here, and maybe it's assigning maybe it's requiring an additional person from each community sit in on this meeting. Maybe they're not part of the meeting, but they have to sit in on it and report about it. But there's got to be more engagement from the communities. And I think that the communities need to see the engagement from one another. I think there's probably skepticism if everybody is in on this. And that's something that I guess, there needs to be more relationship building, or at least like seeing that, we're all interested in this. We all see it's important. Let's take that next step. So that's just like some of my initial thoughts, that I think that we shouldn't lose hope. Let's not get too distracted by the end goal that's far away. It's really big. It's really daunting. Let's look at some of these smaller tasks. Let's build momentum. Let's see if we can get consistently more funding. Let's demonstrate that we can bring in funding to do more things. And let's make a concerted effort to engage the electeds in the process.
I agree. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I might disagree a little bit only is that I think we need to show, when we say, okay, we want to get funding,
Yeah.
we have to show structurally as an authority, what are we going to do with that funding? How are we going to be responsible for it? What are we going to focus on with that funding? And I think that's where I see number 2 here being really important.
Yes.
That, okay, if we get funding, we can hire a director. We can get some professional guidance. We can, get somebody who's going to be grant writing for us and doing those kinds of things. So we can't just say, yes, we want to get funding, but I think we need to really say, here's going to be the structure. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. I see this, a year or 2 year process just to get this set up. But I think we need to demonstrate to the councils that this is the goal when we do get the funding, however it comes. These are the things we want to set up. These are the things we want to do. And they're very concrete and specific. And this is where your money's going to go.
I agree with that. I do think that we have to take even a step further back and say, maybe the first step is putting together this comparative report about how other communities fund harbor maintenance. Maybe it's a report on all of the relevant grants related to harbor maintenance specifically, and we can flag anything that supports technical assistance, and so that we begin to build the foundation so we can take the next step. Because we're not at the point where we're not going to get the funding commitment we need to hire somebody to do this yet.
No.
So we need to
I'm
build.
not asking for that. What I'm saying is we want to have the structure in front of them saying, if we do get the funding, here's how it's going to be spent.
And I think that the way it should be spent is like those first steps, the comparative report, the identification of grant opportunities, identifying any opportunities to fund technical assistance, identifying local organizations that could provide funding, things like that, that then we can, then we can take the next step and hire somebody. Like, how do we get to hiring somebody is where I'm kind of going.
Yes, I agree.
If we don't get that part, this is going to fall apart.
None of us have enough
I have
time.
Yeah.
a stupid question, probably. When do we need to dredge next? I mean, we all keep talking about it's going to take a couple of years for that and 4 years for that. What if we have to dredge next year?
I mean, ideally, we would probably should have a plan now and funding identified.
Or at least a dredge, right? Maybe not decades of dredge.
I mean, the challenge is that when you dredge, we have contaminated material and we need to dispose of that contaminated material in a way that's legal, and that's very expensive. So it's not like dredging is not going to be straightforward and simple. And there's multiple ways that you could do it. Like one of the ways that Greg Whitecamp was talking about is perhaps we could create island instead of like having to identify a facility and pay to move it and pay for it to be there. We could create islands within the harbor that would allow for improved flow of the water and less sediment buildup, and then we could reduce the cost long term because we have identified locations in the harbor where we can deposit the soil. But that's going to be very expensive to do. So I think it's important to communicate the urgency of the issue. I think it's important to let them know that we have no plan. I mean, there's options, but we need to begin to take these baby steps to build to having technical assistance, having somebody in a staffing position to take it to the next level, and then over time we'll get that buy-in.
And right now, all we're asking of the councils is that if they agree that we have a direction, that we're not just spending money foolishly on these reports, that they will be willing to
I know that's what
fund phase two.
Interested in. Yeah,
I think,
they were concerned.
Yeah.
that's kind of like some of the fundamental question. Like, obviously, we need to continue to flesh out this first task report and have enough detail to talk to the councils and board to say, hey, are you fine with funding task 2, which is really putting the economic numbers together? Because I think that's a key piece that is going to help one, hopefully convince the councils and boards that okay, we need to move ahead with and supporting the harbor authority moving forward and taking those step-by-step pieces to eventually get the long-term plan done. But if we have to Jeff's point, have a dredging need sooner rather than later, if we have the economics at least put together, that's going to help us have an earlier conversation with our state and federal partners who frankly are going to have to help us. And tell that story, because eventually, yes, we have something that's high functioning, self-sufficient, good funding sources, and we're not needing that level of funding on a regular basis. But I suspect sooner rather than later, we're going to need that. And I think those economic numbers in task 2 are going to be a key piece of that puzzle.
And it sounds like information that all the communities would benefit from, even if it doesn't go to the harbor
Even
authority.
the state.
Having those numbers put together.
Which is phase 2.
Basically. You see like economy, tourism, quality of life and jobs. This is the verbal version of phase 2. Phase 2 basically would add a dollar amount to the economy, the dollar amount to the tourism, dollar amount or the number of jobs, and dollar amount to fiscal revenue. Well, that's basically what you do. Then what you see here in phase 1, this is the verbal description of. So it is already in the report. So you have this already at hand and see, fiscal revenue declines in tourism related revenue, commercial activity, and long-term taxable value of waterfront parcels. This is an impact if you stop dredging the lake. And if I do phase 2, then this is going to be a dollar amount added to this verbal explanation. So this is the difference. If you guys think not that I don't do the work, I want that project. Don't get me wrong, but if it's possible for you guys to convince your councils with just with that, you say like, okay, yeah, the harbor authority is a reasonable idea. And that will help us to prevent this from happening. You know, then yes, but then, you know, we should, we can flash out the third phase and add a couple of cases. So.
Any
How
other?
much is phase two? Have we done that yet?
They gave us an overall amount for the entire study and then broke down just this task. I don't know if we got a breakdown on task two.
Yeah, the first one is 7,250. Honestly, I have to look it up again.
But we've already asked for the money from our councils.
For
For phase one, they've approved
One,
that,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think they did give us an amount for the entire 3 phases, and we asked them to break it down,
Okay.
baby steps,
Baby steps, baby steps.
to get this approved.
Because if council members with those 6 tables that you know they say okay, yeah, that's important that you'll think about that or you know income, jobs, neutrality, fiscal revenue goals, and it's enough to make them reconsider how to set up the our authority. More power to you.
Well, let us know when you have the polished version of this that you feel that you're ready for us to take it and present it. Then we'll get, that should be our next
You're gonna give us
meeting
a few
probably.
days to respond to you first.
Yeah, and then we'll take the responsibility of selling it to our municipalities.
I'll take the inputs, update, revise the report from where it is right now, and we'll send it to you for final review, that you can take it from there. And if the council members have any questions, just send them to me. I'm more than happy to.
Thank you. We really appreciate, where you've come with so far. This, as a realtor, I love some of the information that was in there, and I'm going to use that a lot. It's nice to have some facts in front of me. Yeah, thank you, and we look forward to the final report.
Okay, we can do this. So once I receive your input, questions, comments, whatever else is on your mind, I can incorporate that.
I would say if we have any input to get it to him by Monday, or do you want to put?
Yeah. I think while it's fresh in your mind, send that email.
Yeah, so I would say if you don't have any by Monday, if people have input, they'll get it to you.
Sounds good.
Then you have kind of a time frame.
Great. Yep. Perfect.
Has Greg seen this? Greg Whitecamp?
Yeah, he was copying.
Okay.
So
He was unable to be here tonight, but
Okay.
We could maybe do a response to the whole group, just saying if you have input, please respond to, I don't know if you want to do it.
again, if you want to, I can see if the conservation district it's okay with sending impact assessment, the visitor impact assessment.
Okay.
So you get an idea of that it looks like.
Nice.
Thank you.
thank you. We look forward to working together.
And then questions, comments, edits, I'm more than happy to incorporate those, answer any questions to make sure that it stays on track for you.
Great. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda wise, I think we've almost covered everything. Unfinished business goals for 2026. I think we've established what that is tonight.
Yeah.
We don't have to establish revenue stream. We've talked about that tonight as well. So reports, committee reports. I don't think we have any outstanding committees at this point in time. Managers report. Lisa's not here. Mr. Cummins, would you
All
like?
right, just taking notes from follow-ups.
Oh, okay, great.
We just had our second round of milfoil treatment, continue to hear really positive things with that. So it seems like, a consistent treatment every year. It's been a costly endeavor that we were seeing some good success with that. Otherwise, all of our downtown work, that kind of at street ends or along the boardwalk, all those concrete repairs are done now. Waterfront access easement with 640 Water Street is signed with Register of Deeds now, so that property in perpetuity will have public access to the waterfront. That's guaranteed. Other than that, that's all that comes to mind really quick. So
Okay. Daniel?
We are making progress on our River Bluff Park project. So we had some delays with
I
permitting.
haven't seen anything physically.
No, nothing. Yeah, no, we have some delays with permitting, but we're working through them. But we're hoping to bid the project soon, and then start construction maybe October, and then finish spring.
Yay.
Yeah, so I think it'll be really nice. So it'll be improved access to the initial trail. It'll be 350 feet of over the marsh boardwalk. We're doing a wetland restoration project, and then building out a new fishing pier, which will actually be nice and safe and comfortable. And then doing, I forget how many feet it is. I think it's like 900 feet of shoreline stabilization. And we're going to be using materials found on site for most of that project. So it's kind of like a ecologically friendly project. So it not only stabilizes the shoreline, but we'll be creating new habitat in the installation of that.
And also handicap accessible.
It's not going to be fully handicapped accessible, but it's going to be pretty handicapped accessible. So even, yeah, so the it's not paved or anything, but the new access to the trail is going to be at a grade that's ADA compliant. People should be able to make it down most of the trail. The boardwalk is clearly going to be ADA compliant. We're unable to get access to the fishing pier because you still have to go down the staircase. But the fishing pier is going to be a lot more comfortable for folks, and it's going to go out farther. So even in low water events, you'll still be able to fish.
Yay.
You can always dredge and keep the water.
Dredge, yes. I'm gonna dredge with a shovel and a pail.
Okay.
That's it.
That's okay. Great. Thank you. Next meeting date. Should we? What's that? What was that?
2028.
Oh, no. Should we meet in August, or do we think we need a little more time to have this, or does?
What will be our agenda for next time?
Well, it's going to be, our agenda will be based on just the final report, and then us being able to, delegating who's going to do what towards each municipality.
So.
Yep.
Anybody have a calendar in front of them?
I know that I will be in Raleigh, North Carolina for work the 14th through the 22nd.
Okay.
So
Is it always Tuesday nights? Is it?
Yeah, that's kind of the
We have
opening.
the 4th, 11th, 18th, or 25th.
Is it the third Tuesday typically?
Oh, is it
Yeah.
that specific? That would be the 18th.
you guys can do that. I just won't be here.
Is that agreeable to everybody else, the 18th? Okay.
Funny enough, I have Douglas Harbor Authority that day, but it's always in the morning. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Like this.
So August
The
18th.
Harvard out.
Christian, does that give you enough time? August 18th for our next meeting?
I should have the report updated before the end of the week.
Okay, great. Well, we'll do that. We don't want to do it on the 25th. That's my birthday.
Someplace else you'd rather be. I'm guessing.
Exactly.
I move that Ryan stands out in the street and puts cones out for parking spaces.
That's a good idea. That's an excellent idea.
What's your seconds on that?
Okay, next agenda item, public comments. I don't believe we have any additional public. 12 authority member comments. I think we've all spoken a lot, but just one more time. Do you want any?
I'm good.
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm good.
I just wanted to say, when people ask me what I do as an alternate for the Cal Lake Harbor Authority, I tell them we replace the light bulbs on the bridge.
Good for you.
Okay, great. Perfect. All right. So then I guess we have a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.